Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and today on the podcast, we're talking about the fabulous success fallacy that happens in the coffee industry. Well, it happens in small business in general, but I want to speak specifically about the coffee industry, and we're going to explore what that means and why it happens and all that good stuff that I hope you'll be able to relate to. This episode is supported by our presenting sponsor, the fabulous Baratza, our favorite and your favorite specialty coffee grinding company. Yes, they're a grinding company. They're a grinder manufacturer. Baratza is loved by all of us. They're consistent. They're very eco-focused. They prefer you to fix your grinder rather than just buy a new one. And the leadership team at Baratza are so deeply focused on the success and happiness of their team and of the direction of the company. So check them out at baratza.com and make sure that you go and check out their grinders should you be looking for a new one. I have one. I love it. I'd never use another one. So baratza.com, and you can hit them up on social media at Baratza. So the success fallacy. Speaking about Baratza, they are definitely a company that does not fall into this success fallacy idea. But the success fallacy of the coffee industry is this. We, at some point, have ended up, whether it be in the mid-2000s or whether it be in the 2010s, early 2010s, what we started to see was a deep acceleration of people opening cafes. In the 90s, there weren't as many coffee shops around, not even close to the number of coffee shops around that there are today. And what you see with this acceleration is that people seem to think that because there are so many cafes out there, it must be a highly lucrative and easy business to open. It doesn't matter how many people I tell. It doesn't matter how much we say it on this podcast. This trend continues to grow, even at a time where so many cafes are closing down, and we've not even reached the peak of the number of cafes that are going to close. You still see people opening cafes for the first time. They're looking for a sea change, or they're looking to shift careers. They love coffee. How hard can it be? We see this in cafes and we see this in roasteries. We see a lot of people decide that because they love coffee and they've got some money put away, they're going to choose this time during a pandemic to buy a roasting machine and start a roasting company. The perception out there is that the coffee industry is a highly lucrative industry. And I want to set a couple of things straight. Beyond the things that we normally say on this podcast, which is, listen, folks, there's not the margins in cafe ownership are so razor thin that you have to hope and pray that every year you don't have a major disaster that completely eats up any kinds of profits that you could make. But aside from that, what we see in this industry is that for you to be hugely successful, which a tiny fraction of people are, you need to be doing some super shady shit and dealing in highly speculative ways. Not speculative, highly suspect ways in this industry in order to achieve high profit margins. And what that means is that you need to be paying low wages. You need to be buying really super cheap coffee that doesn't pay the farmer fairly. So you're engaging in the supply chain in rather suspect ways. You can be successful in this business over time. But this fallacy that being successful in coffee comes really easily is a myth that we have to dispel. I coach a lot of people, business coaching. And what the overwhelming understanding of a lot of people is that they feel that it couldn't possibly be this difficult to open a business in the coffee industry because look how many people are doing it. How hard can it be? And I assure you, friends, I have this saying that I tell everybody that comes into the Map It Forward sphere. Business is going to teach you everything you never wanted to know about yourself. It will reveal things about you, and by you I mean your ego, your emotional state, your mental health, your level of grit, what you're capable of, and compared to what you thought you were capable of. So many things you are going to be tested in, no matter what. It doesn't matter how experienced you are. Every time you do this, you're going to be tested and challenged by yourself in different ways. And so expecting that it's going to be super easy the first time or even the third time is a total fallacy. Very few people that I know can tell me and clearly tell me how they've been successful in this industry. Most people are hanging on by a thread. Most people don't have more than a couple of months worth of expenses in the bank, if that. Now, that's not how we should be operating as an industry. We shouldn't be advocating for a business model that says 3% net profit is good. We should not be advocating for an industry that says you should do this because labor is cheap. Coffee is cheap. What we're saying when we do that is I can be successful at the cost of other people. And a previous version of me would say it's not for me to say that that's right or wrong. Well, it's still not right for me to say that that's right or wrong. But I would invite you to consider, is that how you want to participate? Because everything's changing. And no matter how you're participating, right now, the challenges we're experiencing go beyond all of our reach. In a future episode, we're going to talk about what influence shipping is going to have on our industry. And what we're going to come to realize is that the relationships that you have built in this industry are going to really, really help you in the coming months and perhaps the coming years. If you participate in a suspect way in this industry, it's going to find a way to push you out eventually. So the very few people who are participating in business and raking up all their bags of money by screwing other people over, that level of fuckery, while it will always be around, is going to be more and more burdensome as we have labor shortages and we have supply chain issues. And you'll have to find a way to deal with that. Please, if you believe that this is an easy industry to get into, small business in general is far more complicated than you might think. And we're about to put up a kind of a document that you can buy off the website that will show you all the things that you need to get into small business. It's a checklist of all the things that you need to be able to understand before you launch. And the list is exhausting. It's exhausting, but it's real. And you take a look at it and you think, surely this isn't something that you really have to consider. Well, when you buy this list, you'll also get a video that supports this list, that talks to you about why all of those things are relevant and how they can be relevant to you. What happens if you don't get into it? What happens if you don't do all of these things? And I can tell you, what ends up happening is that you close after 2 years or 3 years. Businesses shouldn't be lasting for 3 years. A lot of businesses don't close after the first year. The statistics say only 20% consistently close after the first year. But that's not really the kind of the time period when we start to find our stride as a business. Most people have that much money in the bank to keep them going. When we start to see whether a business has any chance at actual success is after the second and third and fourth year. We're all being stress tested right now. But this fallacy that it's easy to be in business in the coffee industry or that it's highly lucrative, the margins are thin and it's ever changing. And just one other thing before we go. I'm not sure if you're aware, but in case you're not, a lot of the companies that you see out there that are opening up many, many stores, whether it be pre-pandemic or post-pandemic, for those people who are terming this as post-pandemic, but even now in the middle of the pandemic, these companies that you're seeing opening 20, 30, 50 stores, I want you to be aware that there is usually a VC company, a venture capital company, or someone with a huge stockpile of money that's funding these endeavors. And this happens all over the world. Just because what you see on social media is suggesting success, it's not necessarily what's going on. Projecting success, this success fallacy that we keep talking about, feeds into the narrative of exactly what's destructive about our industry. And so I would encourage you to look deeper and ask questions about any company that you see is opening these beautiful cafes and has these gorgeous bags that they're releasing their roasted coffee in, or beautiful packaging and all this kind of stuff that you know is super expensive. Because when you try and replicate that, you realize, well, gosh, I have to order 10,000 of these as a minimum order and they're costing me $3 a bag. That's 30 grand in packaging right there. And you haven't even considered anything else that you've got to get done to launch this business. So just scratch the surface, ask the questions, consider what's going on behind what you're seeing on Instagram or on TikTok or on any of these other platforms. This isn't an easy industry, but the barrier to entry is low, and so people just assume that they can do it. Think twice. I don't want to eradicate small businesses. What I want is to encourage more small businesses with a higher probability of success. So I want people to be better prepared for going into small business, not less people going into small business. If you have enjoyed this, even if it challenged you, but you enjoyed it, hit the like button, rate us, review us wherever you are listening to this or watching it, and don't forget to subscribe. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.